We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
This crusade, this war on terrorism, is going to take a while.
We came, we saw, we died.
We tortured some folks.
Yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty.
And the pod's been parked. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's episode 55 of Dave versus Goliath. Can't believe we made it, but we did. Thank you for being here with me to help me take on the world. Guys, for the third week in a row, we're going to talk to a presidential candidate. But before we get to that, as lucky as we are, thank you for being here. If you're watching live, you guys are the best. Living in the moment. I truly appreciate you. If you're listening later on iTunes or Spotify, any of that good stuff, be sure to leave your boy a nice review. Nothing less than 4 stars, or we are no longer friends. Smash the like, subscribe buttons, all that good stuff. But yeah, let's get this thing going, man. Oh, before I forget, most Wednesdays you can catch your boy on The System Is Down with that dude Dan Smots. And if you feel like throwing a tip in the tip bucket at any point, feel free at paypal.me/Dave versus Goliath. Guys, something probably equally as exciting for me personally to having our third presidential candidate on in 3 weeks is to welcome back to the show. It's been months. I can't explain the yearning, the longing for my dude, my guy, my main man, Dan. Bro,
what's up, man?
Welcome back, dude.
Thank you. I feel partially responsible for that hiatus.
Oh, it's 100% your fault.
I know. I don't want anybody to think that you took a break because I took a break, though. I just want to clear the air.
Listen,
right there.
I was happy to use the scapegoat. Like you were taking a break. My Dan Smots was taking a break. I was like, you know what? This is the universe talking to me. But yeah, I am absolutely delighted that you're back, dude. And congratulations on your nuptials.
Thank you.
Married. And I got to be there. I was your dude.
You were my dude. You were my main man.
Happy to do it, man. Honored. Yeah, we got a good one tonight, bro.
Yeah, we
Dr. Michael Rectenwald is in the house, running for president of the United States. Mises guy. Pretty interesting. We talk a lot on this show about Klaus.
Yep.
And the World Economic Forum and the totalitarian technocratic dictatorship that these bastards have been setting up. And yeah, it's a nice balance of Libertarian Party shit and Klaus Schwab's evil plans. That's pretty much where you and I
love it. Yeah.
Right. So tonight we got kind of the best of both worlds. So yeah, before we bring him in, we'll just tell you a little bit about the man. He's a former NYU professor, as well as a former Marxist, right? From Marx to Mises, lickety split. He's authored several books, including The Thought Criminal, Springtime for Snowflakes, and a great one I just finished, Google Archipelago, The Digital Gulag and the Simulation of Freedom. He's written numerous articles for the Mises Institute, and he's the host of the Rect podcast. And as we alluded to before, he is seeking the Libertarian Party nomination for President of the United States. Dr. Michael Rectenwald. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Great for having me on. Grateful that you're having me on, Dave and Dan.
Oh, we're very grateful too, man. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So yeah, let's get started, man. Right off the bat.
Yeah.
I heard that you just headlined a talk for the Mises Institute this past weekend in Tennessee. How'd that go?
That went great. So the the theme of the event was the against our limitless regime. And you're right, I was the headliner, and I spoke on the economic and repressive tolerance of the woke regime. That was the title of my talk. But I spoke about, all of the various elements that are hitting us, the onslaught of tyranny that we're facing from all these different directions. So I try to treat all of them. And that's really the theme of my campaign, is wreck the regime. And the regime has quite a few elements to it. So I try to treat them all.
Yeah, it really does. I think when people hear that word regime, they just think, okay, whatever, who's in power in whatever particular government. But when I think about the regime, or at least in, the modern sense, or the term the cathedral, right, it encapsulates a lot through the state and the corporate apparatus, the media, the educational system, kind of all
of
tied
it
into one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's all of those things. I talked about education. I talked about social media. I talked about big tech, censorship. I talked about the military-industrial complex. I talked about the ideas of localism and what the solution is to all this, which is, I think localism or decentralization and nullification. We can't control what these globalist, statist puppet masters are trying to impose on us, but we can cut the strings from ourselves so that we're able to create independent communities that can thrive and practice free market principles and property rights principles, and effectively nullify much of what the federal hegemon is trying to impose on us.
So you must obviously, you got to love the Mises Caucus's Project Decentralized Revolution plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's
been a big fan. I've spoken at several Mises Caucus events in connection with this idea of decentralization. So it's not new to me, but I fully embrace it.
That's beautiful, man. So if anybody out there has not read the manifesto, go check that out. It's at the Mises Caucus site. But they have really put forth like a generational plan for people who are up to that challenge, and that really is what it is. That's not typical for a politician to come in and say, "Well, I've got a solution, but it's going to take 20 years."
Yeah.
So how do you? That must be kind of a hard sell, I guess. I mean, maybe to not to libertarians and Mises Caucus libertarians, but how do we convince other people that not only do you have 20 years to fight, but it will take that long too?
Well, I convince them by telling them what is the alternative. The alternative is more invasions of your school district, more FBI incursions into your home, more federal taxes, more globalist imperatives and agendas being foisted on you. They want to lock you down, not just through COVID measures, but climate change measures. They want to infiltrate and control your school system. They want to override your local sheriff and police force. They want complete and total control. And we have to wrest it away from them and posit it in the people.
Yeah. So a lot of your work is centered around this. I think I said in the beginning, the Google Archipelago was fantastic. I know that it was really, of course, you released that right before the Great Reset happened. So 2019, that book came out. And it's just incredible knowing now what we know they were able to accomplish with those tools.
Yeah.
But man, so let's talk about, I guess, what might be a libertarian blind spot. And that is, you've heard that libertarians are just corporate friendly, or, we're so pro-business that there's the blind spot. It's just like, it's a private business, bro, kind of mentality towards, Twitter or Google. So I think that's probably for me, that's the coolest part about your campaign, is that you're a voice that speaks to the time. I think Jo Jorgensen was a candidate that came at a really important time, and she flubbed on the most important issues of the day. So now, in hindsight, we can, if we're selecting somebody, I think that what you've been able to offer on corporate governmental collusion, or just call it what it is, fascism, or I've heard you use the term governmentalities to describe some of these entities that come about. But I mean, that is something that we need to get across, that it's not really, who cares which came first, corporate tyranny over the government tyranny over the other way around. It's really like a symbiotic relationship at this point.
Yeah, these corporations, these big tech, big pharma, of course, the military industrial contractors, of course, like the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center. These are all appendages of the state. So we're looking at the state augmenting its power and precision of enforcement through the enrollment, really, of corporate entities into the state itself. We're looking at, we saw that with the COVID crisis, so-called. That is, they used big pharma as a means of enforcement, and what did the state get in return for the limited liability or exemption from liability and limited monopoly that they were able to accrue to themselves? They gave the state increased powers of coercion over the population. So all of these things are these governmentalities. We can't see them as strictly private entities. They are state apparatuses. They are extensions, appendages of the state. And unless we understand that, we're not going to be fighting the state, because the state is more than more than the government. It's certainly more than the government. By the way, let me do a little thing here, because I've been accused of not having enough energy, so I'm going to do a little dance for you. Da 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 da.
My man. And you have a lovely singing voice too. We'll add that to the list of positives.
Yeah,
that's cool, man. You said appendages
plenty of energy,
of the...
and I fought back against the woke totalitarians at NYU. They tried to savage and destroy my career, but I stood up for the liberty, and I risked my entire career on it. So I have plenty of energy, and I have plenty of in person, I think I have a lot of charisma. I think people would admit that, and I'm very sociable. I'm very gregarious. I call myself a gregarious introvert, actually.
I already enjoy your company. We would hang out. That's for sure. Cool. You said appendages of the state, and to be clear, I just want people to know, you're not being facetious there. Like, literally, like, the CIA has created thousands of dummy corporations, since its inception, because their charter doesn't allow them to do certain things. So, of course, they go around those things by creating private entities, right?
Yes, what they do, like for example, in the case of Google, they funded Google through their funding agency, In-Q-Tel. So Google got its startup from the CIA in the intelligence communities. So I would say that from the very start, they were an intelligence apparatus. They were funded for the purposes of gathering information, putatively about terrorists and about terrorism and different threats to the state. And so their whole project was launched on that basis. And what have they become since? They've become they've had almost near total control over information. They control what news we're able to see. They control opinion. They downrank and disappear anything alternative to the official narrative. So they're towing the state's narratives and the state's imperatives on a constant basis. And they have, and it's no surprise given their inception as a CIA intelligence agency funded organization. And the CIA has done this with numerous other big tech firms. In fact, Facebook was also funded through military intelligence dollars. And so
LifeLog was the name of that one, right?
What's that?
I think the CIA version of Facebook was called LifeLog, and I think they took that offline. I think the day that Facebook started.
Right. So, in the case of Facebook, the funding came through circuitous means, through Peter Thiel's Planetaire and other sort of buffers between them and the CIA. But really the money flowed from the CIA, from In-Q-Tel and into Facebook. And, so there's no way to talk about these companies as so-called private entities who have the right to censor and control information as they do because it's their property. A lot of this property from the start was public or so-called public property. It came from taxes. It was really stolen. So these companies are in effect operating as state agents.
Yes, they are, and it's really the title of the book is great. The digital gulag. So you can. I mean, this is their workaround for the Constitution, right? You don't get First Amendment rights on YouTube and Google,
right?
Just recently, Russell Brand, who's one of the most popular content creators on the internet, completely independent, has gone extremely hard against the regime, particularly during the COVID lockdowns, and talks about a lot of the same things that you do. But he was it's the same parent company, of course, Google and YouTube, but was just completely demonetized because of allegations of sexual improprieties. So they didn't even wait for any kind of trial or any kind of anything. It was just court of public opinion. We're not going to promote you. But they didn't remove him. So they are still collecting dollars when he speaks.
Right.
And that's how it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's how they operate. And that case is very curious. And the timing is very curious as well. He had been making some statements that I think went over the line as far as the establishment is concerned. And then they suddenly come up years later with these allegations. Now, I'm not adjudicating his guilt or innocence. I just find the timing extremely curious.
Right. My friend Dylan had a good take on that. He said, look, either he's innocent and they're going after him because of this stuff, or he was guilty and they were covering for him as long as he was playing ball. And then
that's a good possibility.
The common denominator being the regime.
There's even an article that came out that said that he built up a cult of conspiracy theorists to protect him from an eventuality that he knew was going to come. That in fact they would be that these accusations would follow. Likewise, he built a cult following so they would buffer him against these allegations. It's just
that's a really good conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. They say this and call his audience conspiracy theorists while they float an outrageous conspiracy theory themselves.
Man, I really hate that. He's putting out great work and just odd timing. Let's say that.
By the way, he was very much a staunch leftist to begin with, but as he saw the developments and what was going on, he could not hold that position very long. He's actually somewhere else. I mean, he's more towards a libertarian than a leftist because he's not an authoritarian like most of, or if not all of the left. So, yeah. And so it just shows you that people transform and they still have a major effect. In fact, having been on the left gives him insights into its workings and the machinations that they undertake.
That's a good segue. Let's go there for a minute because your history is pretty interesting. You spent the majority of your adult life as a Marxist, correct? And this is a great story though. Origin story of a libertarian in that when you were teaching at NYU, had some opinions that were off limits, and that led to your termination. And then looks like some cool things came out of that, and you're doing some great things with this part of your career. But can you tell me about that? I've heard a little bit about it, but I think it's worth repeating for anybody who hasn't.
Yeah, so I created a Twitter account called the Anti-PC NYU Prof. And I knew that if I started to voice the ideas that I was having as an NYU professor, that it would cause a great deal of consternation that all hell would break loose. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. I started tweeting about the so-called social justice insanity in universities across the country and also at NYU. And then I was, asked by a student newspaper reporter if I really was an NYU professor. And then they said, if so, could we interview you? So I did the interview, went on the record, and came out swinging about what was going on. And within 2 days, I was coerced into a leave of absence, denounced by the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Group, and made a total pariah on campus. And they actually ended up moving my office to the Russian department. I'd like to say they put me on my own personal gulag because they completely isolated me, and they took away, they wouldn't move my books. They wouldn't give me any support staff. They wouldn't give me even a telephone. It was quite fitting, actually, because at the time there was all this Russia collusion nonsense going about. And, so here I am basically treated like a gulag prisoner in the university system. And so the upshot of that was I immediately found myself attracted to civil libertarianism, and individual liberty became the main criteria of all my thinking. And then with a little research, a lot of research actually, but just a little was enough to change my mind. I became an economic libertarian after reading Mises, particularly his book Socialism, economic and social analysis, I think it's called. I think that's the correct title. And then on to Rothbard and Hoppe, and the rest is history. So it's been a very interesting ride. It was disorienting at first, but I think I have my sea legs. I know where I come from, and I know what insights it allows me to have. I've been one of the most trenchant critics of socialism and all forms of statism, but particularly socialism, communism, because it is, I think, one of the most oppressive, tyrannical statist projects in history. And so, that's been my trajectory. There's no going back once you taste liberty, and once you taste the principles of liberty, and you get a sound economic analysis about the state and an opposition to socialist ideas very clearly laid out. You don't turn back on that. That's pretty much clear.
Was there something specific that caused you to throw the monkey wrench in that mix and start that Twitter account? Like, because if you were like traditionally on the left and a Marxist, usually that cultural Marxism or social justice is kind of like a means of to an end for them. Like, was something specific triggered you to decide to do that?
Yeah, there were a number of tipping points. One of them was the transgender craze, the pronoun wars. And at the same time, Jordan Peterson was doing, facing the same thing, the compulsion to speak in a certain way that the pronoun wars represented. Also the hiring practices that I was party to at NYU. I was, basically forced off of a committee. I was the chair of a committee to hire a writing prof, and the person couldn't write a sentence. And, so they were hired on the basis strictly of identity, not competence or ability. They passed over stellar candidates for this. It just utterly disgusted me. And there were, then the safe spaces came in, and the trigger warnings on syllabi and the no platforming of speakers. I just saw, look, at these people are authoritarians, if not totalitarians, on the rise. And I was right. I was ahead of the curve. This was 2016. I was well ahead of the curve, and things just got worse since.
So I promise you, this isn't a gotcha thing, because you're looking at a guy who voted for Ralph Nader.
Yeah,
I supported Ron Paul when as a Republican, and I changed my voter registration to Democrat when Tulsi Gabbard ran for president. But it looks like you took a small detour off in MAGA land in between Marxism
No,
and Rothbard. Is that fair?
No, I don't think that's. I mean, it's true that I ended up voting for Trump in 2016. It was more or less a vote out of spite against the elite. And that Twitter account, I called myself the deplorable NYU prof. That was the name, and the handle was the anti-PC NYU prof. Point was that I was really striking out against the regime, especially these coastal elitists who had the gall to characterize all opposition to their agenda as, deplorables. And I had a tremendous affinity for those people. That's why I voted for Trump. It wasn't about Trump. It was a vote of spite. And I've seen other people talk about this even in connection with the upcoming election. I've seen Clint Russell say, I might, I can't, he admitted, he said, part of me wants to vote for Trump out of spite for these people. And that's all it was. And so I never was like a Trumpian, touting Trumpian virtues or, policies or anything like that. And I effectively just voted for Trump out of hatred for what was being promulgated, what was being pushed on us through Clinton, and then the rest of it all. These leftist totalitarians that are running the country, I believe, that's what we're under. We're under leftist totalitarianism, and I will not. That's my firm belief, and I think that's really what that was all about.
So we'll read some questions tonight, and most of them are public and we can read. But this one, the person asked to be remain anonymous. But this is a Mises Caucus organizer who asked, why do social media accounts associated with your campaign have posts as recently as a month ago stating that you intend to vote for Trump? If you maintain it's not yours, what is being done to fix this?
No, that's not true. First of all, so the premise of the question is false. I took over. I was banned from Twitter.
Me too. Hey now, must have been doing something right.
My account was the anti-PC NYU prof, and I changed it to the anti-PC prof, and then to the anti-woke prof, and then it was when I made a few tweets about some issues regarding transgenderism and depopulation. I called it a part of a neo-Malthusian depopulation campaign. I was banned from Twitter entirely. So what I did is I took over a Twitter account that was lent to me by someone else, by an associate. And I took that account over, I believe, in January. So all of the tweets before that were not mine. And since then have never said anything in support of Trump. So the premise is false. And the reason is that I had to take over that account is censorship. I was censored. I was, deplatformed from Twitter entirely.
Yeah, I got to Twitter in 2021 when I started this podcast, and it took me under a year to get the full lifetime ban until Elon came back. We'll talk more about Elon because if we're talking about AI and we're talking about the Google archipelago and we're talking about, all of this, I mean, I want to know about that particular military contractor.
Yeah.
But we got another question from the chat here. This is from Carter Hill. He is the chair of the Libertarian Party of Delaware. He asks, how do you plan to connect with people who don't know what libertarianism is?
I think that's a great question, and it actually plays to my strengths because having, been a convert from the left and understanding how they think and understanding the premises of it. They think it's the moral philosophy. It's the morally superior philosophy. And they think that, redistribution is morally superior to, property rights. So I plan on showing them how it's, what libertarianism represents is the moral position, that what they advocate is actually theft. And furthermore, it's theft and it has terrible economic and social consequences, including poverty. It increases what it intends or supposedly intends to ameliorate. It actually exacerbates the very things that it aims to address and redress. So I think I appeal to them on the basis of knowing where they're coming from, and I'm able to convert people. I've converted people in my own life. I've converted people to libertarianism from leftism in my own circles. I can continue to do that, and I can broaden that range as the nominee for the Libertarian Party.
I come from the left myself, and would you say it's fair that most people who vote Democrat are Democrats, or at least, I don't know, maybe this is an antiquated idea, but I thought that the left was the party that had empathy. At least that's what they maybe play on. Like,
Yeah.
Is that kind of how you reach people that are on the left? I'm not sure that that's the case anymore, but it was once upon a time.
Yeah, they think it's the more empathetic position. They think it has to do with extending goodwill and recognition to beleaguered identity groups, but it really creates a scenario in which they produce more horror and destruction in their wake than anything in history. So I think that there is a lot of among the Democrats, there are a lot of unconscious Marxists. Really, they don't realize the premises that they've absorbed sort of by osmosis rather than really through thought. So they effectively buy the labor theory of value and the theory of exploitation that comes out of Marxism without knowing it. They think that capitalists are, accruing profit by exploiting workers. I mean, that's what they think, whether they realize it or state it explicitly or not. That's really a lot of their policy positions or their policy, what they endorse really comes from that kind of idea, those kind of thoughts. So I debunk all that. I've been debunking it since 2017. I debunked it in Springtime for Snowflakes, Google Archipelago, Beyond Woke, and in the latest book, Great Reset and the Struggle for Liberty.
So right after I did Google Archipelago, I reread Propaganda by Edward Bernays, completed in 1928 and just perfectly relevant for the day.
Mm-hmm.
He talks a lot about what would be called like modern day influencers. Like that's a buzzword now. When you think of like the hottie on Instagram, like selling like whatever shampoo or something like that, but like they really the regime employs democracy because they found that that's the way that they can control. They don't care what you think because they're going to put those thoughts there to begin with, right? Like that seems like that's the easiest way to control the masses is through propaganda. The only thing that matters is public relations. It doesn't matter if you're in a fascist dictatorship, a communist utopia, or whatever. It's like it's public opinion really that steers everything. So I thought that was a good pairing. Your book right next to his. It kind of.
Oh, thank you. That's quite a compliment. Yeah, I think that's true. And right now, you're seeing the monopolization of opinion, and it's a very difficult thing to circumvent. But people are doing it. There are a lot of dissidents out there, and I mean to gather them up and pull them into a force together, and to go after this type of controlled propagandistic system that we're dealing with. We're facing nonstop propaganda on a regular basis, on a daily basis, on a minute by minute basis, and so yeah, it's very pernicious, and it takes a great deal of perseverance for one to overcome it, and it takes a lot of thought, and you have to be prepared to you have to be inoculated against it. And that's what I try to do with my writing, is give people an inoculation against lies. And my campaign will be about telling the truth, and that's including the truth about the system, but also about myself. I'm not. I didn't go. I wasn't. It wasn't my idea to run for president. I was drafted by the Mises Caucus, and I stepped up because I thought the mission was too important to let pass by. And so I didn't have any kind of delusions about being a presidential candidate. I thought, I'll continue writing and speaking and doing what I do, but they came to me and asked me to do this. And so that's why I did it. So I haven't been a perennial presidential candidate. I've been, I've been in the liberty movement and doing a lot of work to advance the cause of liberty in a different way than in a party setting.
Mm-hmm. That was going to be a question I was going to ask. Like, why in the world would you run for president? It just seems like we tried pretty hard to get Dave Smith to run, and it was just, it doesn't seem like something that, they wanted to do. So, and you have a lot going on for it. You've written a dozen books and doing all kinds of work for Mises, and you got your own podcasts. You don't have to do this. But
no, I didn't have to do this at all. And I deliberated about it a while. And, I weighed the pros and cons, and I really understand why Dave Smith declined to do it. I mean, he has a young family. Mm-hmm. His child had, in the past, had open heart surgery. I mean, the guy's, you got a lot on his plate, with a young family and so forth. There's a lot of vulnerabilities there, and it puts stress on the person. It puts stress on the family. It puts stress on everybody involved, including the candidate. And so, it's something that I happen to be positioned for because I'm not married. I do have an ex-wife, and she totally supports me in this.
Beautiful.
We're good friends. I do have 3 children, and they support me. Not all to the same extent, but they're behind me in terms of my well-being, and 2 of them are firmly behind my ideas. I mean, it wasn't my idea, but it's a charge that I was handed, and I thought that I effectively was, called to do it in the sense that people wanted me to do it.
I'll be honest with you. That's one of the first things that I felt like if we're going to take over this party and we're going to change the culture, it would be great if we would start to recruit candidates or plead with people to run rather than people promoting themselves and telling us why they're the guy for the job. So off to a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't need this, and it wasn't for self-promotion purposes whatsoever. I have plenty of vehicles for that. I've been on mass media, mainstream media, hundreds of podcasts. I get cited in media almost every day. I just got off the phone with Children's Health Defense reporter talking about the new CDC rollout of a surveillance system. And so I get plenty of attention. It's not that I didn't need the attention. I didn't, so it wasn't something that I was doing for that purpose at all.
Dan, you got something?
No, sorry, I was messing with my my thing there. Sorry.
You have a
close up on me for a second. I thought I was going to get kicked out again.
Okay.
But I'm still here.
So if I don't know anything about anything, but I assume at this point, from what I can tell on Twitter and public opinion, is that this is a 2-tiered race at the moment, and there's 2 guys in the Mises area who people are excited about, and that's you and Josh Smith. Would you say that that's accurate at the moment?
Well, I mean, that's the Twitter temperature or X temperature. I think outside of those, outside of the Twitter sphere or the X box, if you will, outside of that, outside of the X box, it could be a different game. And so I don't see Twitter as a necessary reflection of the real reality on the ground, but I do think it has some relevance, and I think that's the kind of parity that's being set up, and I think I welcome the challenge, and I don't want to, as I said on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, I will not be engaged in some sort of negative campaigning against other LP candidates. It's not why I'm here.
To be honest with you, the negative stuff doesn't excite me, at least when it's in our own circles. I'm happy to go throw mud at people that are outside, but no, I would be happier if that weren't the case. However, I'll listen to people and hear what they have to say. It seems like some people think that in the Javier Milei moment, right? That they're looking for a bomb thrower, like an everyman, or just a guy with tattoos and hoodies who's ready to yell rather
Yeah,
than
well,
a professor or
I
someone
can,
with
yeah,
a pedigree. Is it? What would you say
I
to
should
that?
go get my Thought Criminal T-shirt or what hoodie, my Thought Criminal hoodie. Listen, I mean, I think it is necessary to be a bit of a flamethrower and a bit of a bomb thrower, but I think we also need somebody that has a comprehensive understanding of what we're dealing with. And that I think that I do have that comprehensive understanding, and that includes the onslaught of the various aspects of this regime that we're up against. It's at this point, it's mere virtue signaling in effect to say ban the Fed. Everybody wants to end the Fed, but just repeating statements like that doesn't get you anywhere. We have to do more than that. We have to explain what it's doing. We have to explain why the Fed is a wicked institution, including its history, but also its practices. And so that takes a bit of thought. And so I agree that we need a Javier Milei moment. And I don't think Javier Milei is an everyman per se. I think he's a very smart and articulate guy, and he has a different environment that he's working in. That his main opponent is an outright socialist, and so it's if it comes to opposing socialism, you can't beat me with that, because I have been opposing socialism and so forth for years, and I've articulated all the problems with it. But we don't face an avowed socialist regime. We face one that's disguised through various projects like public-private partnerships and other things that disguise themselves as benign and that disguise their underlying socialist fascist underpinnings. So we need to be able to articulate that and what that's about, and how do we oppose it? How do we undermine it? And I've laid out a plan in my book, The Great Reset and the Struggle for Liberty. It's a 9-point plan for undermining this, what I think is a globalist agenda. And it's statist, but it's globalist as well. And I talk about that, and I talked about that at the Mises Institute talk, and I have a forthcoming essay coming out on that. So I think we need that too. So if it's a matter of so-called charm and charisma, I don't have any shortage in that, and I certainly don't have any shortage of energy. I've been fighting this battle for straight up 7 years against an onslaught of opposition, starting from NYU and then fighting all kinds of leftists and leftism in every facet of its existence. So I don't think that I should be disqualified on the basis of charisma or endurance or energy. I have plenty of all of them. And, look, people are looking at a podcast that I did, when I was effectively being called on to be an analyst rather than a political candidate. And so the comparison is unfair, and it just doesn't give me a chance to campaign. And I think people, when they meet me, when I'm going around all these different events, they'll see that I'm a very animated person with plenty of charm and also flame and bomb throwing capacity.
I would agree with you also that I think people are hungrier for information and detail than we give each other credit for. Because I know I am. And I particularly like the way you do that with all the ESG stuff and World Economic Forum stuff, because a lot of people go out there and they throw these kind of they throw the intangible terms around, like stakeholder capitalism and, whatever else, BlackRock's doing this and that. But I was listening to one of your shows that you did with Walter Block, talking about how specifically that's going to affect the individual. You're talking about how Nigel Farage can't get a bank account and how that could happen to you as well. To me, that's the kind of stuff that's going to connect to people on an individual level.
Yes, absolutely. So the ESG will prohibit people from buying things. It's aimed at changing our behavior, changing our consumption, limiting our choices, constraining us to rating us with social credit scores. The S part of ESG is social. And so that'll turn out to be a social credit score rating for individuals. It's now a social credit score rating for corporations. It's also a monopoly scheme. It basically takes a bunch of competitors and gets rid of them by virtue of this kind of woke cartelization scheme, where if you don't subscribe to the woke dictates, then you are effectively banned vis-a-vis capital investments. Larry Fink from BlackRock has said this outright and has practiced it since he said it. That is, they direct capital away from the non-compliant and toward the compliant, creating a woke cartel, distorting the market, violating property rights, and limiting the potential for us, for consumers, to buy gas, to eat meat, to live outside of a certain perimeter. 15-minute cities they want to establish where you wouldn't be able to leave this place, a 15-minute perimeter by walking or bike, and things like this. This is all on the agenda, and we need to be aware of it.
And I feel like most people are living on an old operating system where they still believe in the profit and loss system. And hey, a mom and pop business, or, like the free market. Like I tell people all the time, like I own a little coffee shop. Like you can't make a cup of coffee for somebody without all kinds of permissions from the state and fees to the state just to do that. You think there's the only free market is the black market, and they'll come after you. So it's not even free. But that's why we're seeing things like Dylan Mulvaney on a Bud Light can, or like these woke Marvel movies, or women's soccer like being pushed in your face. It's like people don't want these products, but yet they keep insisting that you have them
because they don't care. Really, it's a battle between consumer finance and a consumer capital and finance capital, really. So the financiers are determining what's going on. The reason why Bud Light and Target and Disney and a whole plethora of companies are obeying these woke dictates as against the consumer's demands is because that's where the money is in terms of capital investment. They won't buy your stock if you don't do this. If you don't have transgender promotion, if you don't have environmentally sound practices according to them, they'll just starve you from capital investment and you'll wither on the vine.
Right, regulate you out of existence. Terrifying.
And it's not just the state; it's extra governmental. It is followed up by the state, but it's preemptive. It's a preemptive coercion system that operates outside of the ambit of the state officially. So that has to be dealt with. How do we deal with it? Well, first of all, they probably wouldn't be doing it if it weren't for the possibility of regulations coming from the state. So they're trying to get out ahead of regulations. Right. And then they also noticed this is a good way to accrue. This is a good way to, get rid of competitors. These are monopolists at base. They want to get rid of competition. So they're
centralize it. The opposite of everything we want, right? Centralize all authority, all power.
Centralize everything. And everybody obeying the centralized dictates. So Klaus Schwab, for example, at an annual meeting, I think it was the 2022 annual meeting, said the biggest enemy that they faced was so-called fragmentation. And what is fragmentation? It's people doing what they want, and they couldn't have that.
Right, yeah.
People not obeying their dictates. So he said, fragmentation is the problem. We must consolidate. And they've been railing against that for some time. He straight up said, laissez-faire is over. We got to get rid of it. We need this stakeholder capitalism. So there are globalist organizations that are essentially dictating state policy. So we need to cut the strings between those globalist organizations and the state. That's a huge thing that has to be done. The World Economic Forum is being funded by USAID. It's not their only funding source. Corporations fund them as well, but USAID, a department of the U.S. government, funds the World Economic Forum.
Wow. Like it's already, all the deals have already been done.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a UN project,
Yeah,
and the UN model is the China model.
that's right.
That's why I feel like, man, nobody gets it right when they talk about China. It's like
Right.
they're not. I almost wanted to upload the boardroom scene from The Network, but I didn't want to get hit with a copyright strike. But they talk about this 50 years ago. Like, what do you think the Russians talk about at their councils of state? Karl Marx? Like, no.
No.
Right.
They're talking about business, just like you. They get out their sheets, they do their things, just like you do. I would imagine the same thing is true of China today. It's like,
Yes.
don't be scared of communist China. Be
No.
scared of their social credit system that the world has already signed up to participate in.
That's right.
what you should do.
China represents the model that the West wants to roll out. They've said this explicitly. Klaus Schwab on CTG TV, an official Chinese state media platform, said China is a good model for many countries. So they're looking at China as something to emulate. Schwab, one of Schwab's mentors, Maurice Strong, said the same thing. And they've been modeling China for some time. So China is the enemy is within. China is just the blueprint for what these people want to do.
I feel like it's because China has, I bet the governments of the world recognize that China has employed the most successful tyranny over their own people, and their people don't seem to want to fight terribly much. So if that's the case, I bet the American government, a guy like Trump, who really admires Xi, a guy like Xi, a strong guy, wouldn't he rather rule like that? I call him king. I've seen him. He says this stuff. I've called him king because he can't get it unelected. I feel like most leaders would probably prefer to rule with an iron fist if they had their choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Trudeau said it. He said it point blank. I really admire the totalitarianism of China, he said.
Yeah, that guy's ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, so Canada is kind of like the forecast thermometer for the United States. What they're doing, is just a bit ahead of what the U.S. is attempting to do. So we should look to them as a kind of barometer for our future, unless we change it.
Yeah, we don't want to be like that shithole Canada. Please, we got to do something. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Elon Musk a little bit, because you and I were both booted from Twitter.
Right.
When he brought me back, I had a feeling of gratitude and excitement. Here comes this champion of free speech and all these wonderful things. And some of that's still true, but in the back of my head, I'm still always thinking, wait a second, this is a government contractor that's paid, hundreds of millions of dollars in government contracts. SpaceX, we're just talking about my little coffee stand. He sends rocket ships up into space, right? I mean, he uses NASA installations to get stuff done. He's talking about the Neuralink. I want to connect people to AI. I thought a great part of your book, which again, people should check that one out. But you said people are fearing like AI becoming like self-aware. Like you should not worry about that. You should worry about AI doing exactly what the central planners program it to do. That's what you should worry about.
It's kind of like it's an army for the regime. It's not going to take on its own consciousness and start doing things on its own that you don't want it to do. It'll serve as a form of it'll serve as a kind of militia, an additional source of repression and surveillance and control, and it won't be getting off on its own and dictating to us. It's going to be used as a tool, and that's what's happening too. And that's what I fear about AI. I think artificial intelligence per se is not a bad thing. It's whose hands it is in. That's what we need to worry about.
Elon is, he's probably like the most famous transhumanist. Like, are there good transhumanists? Is that a possibility, or we should just always?
Well,
you see, how do you view him these days?
Well, Musk, I think, leaving Musk aside for a second, what is transhumanism? Transhumanism is a project that actually came out of eugenics and was a new means of achieving a superhuman species. And instead of just doing it through genetic engineering and so forth, and breeding and so forth, they decided that humans could be enhanced through technology per se. So enhancements, technological enhancements, including like brain cloud interfaces and other types of, technologies that, they say will augment human capacity. But I think it's a bait and switch routine. They're going to promise us enhancements, which will end up being further trammels and further forms of control. This is going to turn out to be a control technology that they use for enforcement purposes and for surveillance purposes, and even preempting behavior, predictive programming, and predictive behavior preemption. They're looking at ways to effectively control not only your outside and what you do, but also what you think. This is Neuralink. Neuralink is a brain-computer interfacing system, but they want to institute brain cloud interfacing, which is just one. It's really not even a step from brain-computer interfacing, where your thoughts are connected to the cloud, and they could be. You could have inputs from the cloud to your brain, so that you're. I mean, it sounds far-fetched, but this is actually possible. This technology is in development. Yeah.
I've seen somebody proposed it like this. Imagine that you're a child in school in North Korea, and you walk by the framed picture of Kim Jong-un on your way out of the class. And if your feeling in your heart is anything other than admiration and love, they're going to fucking know about it.
They'll know it.
When they'll know it because you have that chip in your head. And that's,
I thought
you're
that
right.
was interesting that I think that was Harari who said that. Yuval Noah Harari.
Oh yeah, we've talked about him. He's a bad guy, right? He's number 2 behind Klaus, right?
He's one of his advisors on the Fourth Industrial Revolution technologies and so forth. But interestingly, he posits it with this reaction to the North Korean leader. It could very well be used here.
Sure.
So if you have negative thoughts about the regime, they'll know it and even preempt behavior. I mean, Schwab said, for example, we could have predictive programming so that we could stop people. This is pre-crime apprehension or arrest. So, this sounds far-fetched, but I can assure you, I looked at the actual papers coming out of research institutions that are on the cusp of making this very, very possible. And, I saw it myself. I worked in robotics and AI in an AI lab at Carnegie Mellon University in the Robotics Institute, and they were able to, move a monkey's arm from across the continent using using internet. The internet alone, they could make a monkey move its arm, things like that. Yeah. So they want to make us monkeys that move as they wish.
I won't even go near that shit. Yeah, I'm terrified. That's why I won't even get an Apple Watch because of that. I don't want them knowing what gets my heart rate elevated. You got that thing on your wrist and you're looking at your phone.
Yeah,
fuck that
the Internet
already.
of Bodies. Yeah, the Internet of Bodies technologies, which are surveillance technologies. And Harari said it's not enough to know what's going on in your behavior. We need to know what's going on inside of you.
God. Yeah. And of course, that's just the nature of the things, right? Like in the 40s, we're going to just tap your phone. We just want to hear it. We're just going to hear what's going on. And then we're going to put decades later, put some cameras in the streets. It's just like as far as the technology will take the regime will take it.
Absolutely.
And yeah, now we want to be inside your body. It's so disgusting.
So I guess the question is, how does this connect to the Libertarian Party? Well, I think it does, because I think it's necessary to know the extent to which this regime is going or will go to have complete control over us. It isn't, they're looking at ways of, predicting our behavior, controlling our behavior, surveilling on us. I just got off, as I said, I just got off the phone previous to this interview with a Children's Defense Health Network a reporter, and they're talking about having a new COVID-like system where you know they actually monitor everything about you, so that they will know they can target you individually if you're a vaccine resistor, for example, and that they will know based on social media, based on behaviors, based on interactions of various sorts, what you're doing. And this is where the state's going right now. So to dismantle it is going to take Herculean effort, but we can't do it if we don't know what's happening.
Children's Health Defense Fund, that's RFK's.
That's RFK's baby, yeah. Absolutely.
Right. That's another great segue, because I wanted to talk about some of these other people who other people are talking about, namely presidential candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And RFK is a good one, because some libertarians, kind of like when Tulsi was around, you know, are toying with the idea of supporting him, or, you know, there's varying levels of support. I've seen some people say that, oh yeah, he should, you know, run as a libertarian, which I think is ridiculous. And while they're destroying all of the language and all the words, like, let us try our hardest to protect the word libertarian. That would mean a lot. So you don't want him being a libertarian per se, but I did say that if he, by some miracle, was the nominee for the Democrat Party, that would be worth my vote. And that is because I think that anything you could do to make the Democrat Party less malevolent would be good for everybody. Would you agree with that? Or I know you're running for president.
Yeah, I'm not going to agree to the idea of voting.
Sure.
Vote for you instead. I mean, there's a lot of overlap between what he thinks and says and what I think and say. You know, he's very much against the collusion between big pharma and the state and the various agencies. He believes that, you know, there's regulatory capture. He argues against, you know, he's even arguing against, you know, certain immigration policies. He's arguing against the military industrial complex and the war in Ukraine. These are very serious overlaps.
And, you know, talking about Monsanto, what Monsanto has done to humanity goes, I mean, 1 in 2 people will get cancer in their lifetimes.
Yeah.
You know, they play a big role in that. I'm pretty sure if you're a libertarian listening, that's a NAP violation.
Yes, that's right.
Somewhere along the line, that's got to be.
Absolutely is. So, yeah, he's got a lot of good points. I still think, though, that he is an old school welfare statist. And redistribution is his, you know, he still has redistributionist ideas. And I would strongly oppose all that. And he still has pretty centralized statist policies and ideas that he wants to implement. So I think that's the difference. He's still looking at the central government as the answer. And this, you know, that I think is a real big mistake, because I don't think you can take this over from the top. And that's why I say that I'm not really running to wreck the regime myself. I'm running to get people enlisted as candidates on the ground to wreck the regime at the local level. That's where the control is going to, that's where we're able to wrest power away from these people at the local level. We cannot overthrow and topple this state from the top down. Nobody is going to come in and be able to reform it. We have to do it from the bottom up. We have to take over our local governments, our local sheriff, our local police, our local school district, and then have them under our control and resist the state's imperatives from the ground up. This is the only way to do it. I don't think, you know, it's not about a white knight riding in on a horse to capture the presidency and take over and do these things that he's saying he can do. I think it's a different project that I envision, and it's the only one I think that'll work.
But would you say that you think that he's an honorable man? You just disagree with him
on
some things?
Totally
he's an honest actor. Okay,
I think good. He's a great. I think he's a brilliant guy. First of all, I think he's very, very articulate. He knows history very well. This is something I would like to point out. Look, he knows things. He knows a lot about history. He knows a lot about the history of various agencies in the government. He knows about, first of all, he knows about the fact that the CIA was probably behind the murder of his own father and uncle. And he knows what the state can do. He really does know viscerally how wicked and evil the state is. But he still wants to take it over instead of dismantling it.
Yeah. He has
from the
faith in
ground
the
up.
institutions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
What about Trump? Not the guy, but I'm still not sure if this is a guy who is taking on the regime or if this is a participant in it. Given his history with World Wrestling Entertainment and his, what he's good at and what his, the art of the deal, I'm pretty sure, would tell you, just like say whatever it takes, do whatever it takes to get the pitch out
to win.
So I have a theory that he is the effigy that the World Economic Forum will burn in the name of capitalism. He will be the symbol that they will destroy and take down willingly because he's a power player, not a capitalist or anything else. He's just in it for probably himself and his legacy, his family, and of course the money.
Yeah, I mean, what he represents is one thing. What he did is another. And I think he undertook some of the worst policies in U.S. history, including the COVID lockdowns and the rolling out of the vaccine with Operation Warp Speed and the trillions of dollars that he added to the national debt through the process. I think that this is kind of a puppet show here, where Trump is supposed, I think, it could very well be, without him knowing it, I think he'd be an unwitting dupe for controlled opposition to this regime.
That sounds likely too, that he might not know what they're using him
I don't
for.
think he knows what he's being used for. Look what they were able to accomplish using him as a foil. They were able to consolidate the whole otherwise oppositional left behind the establishment entirely. And now you have so-called leftists supporting the war in Ukraine, supporting the alphabet agencies, supporting the COVID mandates and horrors, supporting everything that the regime tells them is right, and flattering them in the process. Oh, you're smart because you think this, and other people are conspiracy theories because they think otherwise. So they managed to use Trump to consolidate the otherwise obstreperous oppositional elements of the social order, and to get them entirely behind their regime. And this is why we see what I consider to be another outright I know that leftism is totalitarian at base, but at least they seem to have anti-war principles. I know when I was a leftist, I marched against the Gulf War, the Iraqi War. I spoke in New York against the war. I know I was always anti-war. In fact, I was sitting in the Robotics Institute at Carnegie Mellon, and there was a 5-star general there testing out some of the software that the lab was producing. And I was a writer. I didn't write the code. I wrote about the software and what it could do. And I'm sitting there writing an anti-war post that I'm about to post on the internet, sitting right next to this 5-star general. I'm just pointing out, that the left used to have these principles. I don't know what happened to them. Well, I do. I think they used Trump, as I said, as a foil to consolidate the left behind the establishment.
Man, they sure did. The speed in which they went to pro big pharma was amazing. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Again, I came from the left, and I was there because my first instinct was to just be anti-war.
Yeah.
In 2001, 2002, 2003. Don't murder people. Everything after that, you can have discussions about. It's fine, but don't murder people.
Imperialism is bad. Imperialism is bad. Murdering other people is evil. It increases state power and allows them to have further repression of the domestic population while they expand their reach across the world. I mean, it's obviously a very, it's a pro-state project. And, I think the welfare state goes along with it. It's the warfare welfare state. It's all part and parcel.
Jennifer Halbane says, this all makes so much sense that they use Trump. Bill Kristol is now a Democrat. Right. These labels are kind of just silly at this point, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the pendulum is completely swung the other way. I never thought in the heart of the George Bush presidency that I would see conservatives that were becoming the counterculture and the hippies. No more war spending, man. Like it's incredible. Mainstream candidates, even like Vivek Ramaswamy. People are really liking that guy. I'll say, as far as rhetoric is concerned, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of trust for a big pharma guy, slick talker coming out, probably running to be Donald Trump's number 2.
Right.
But if we're interested in messaging rhetoric, I mean, he is saying, other than launching a drone war on the Mexican cartels, everything's pretty sweet coming out of that guy. What do you think about him?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, there's overlap with him too, but I don't know whether the overlap is strictly rhetorical or real or substantive. Look, I've met him. We've spoken. I spoke right before him at a Hillsdale College event, and we had a nice conversation. He seems like a nice guy. But I don't agree with all of his policies. I mean, he's right on ESG, but I don't think he has the right idea of how to end it. He's right about the fact that we have an immigration crisis, but starting a literal war to stop it is outrageous. He's right about Ukraine, but he's wrong about China. He's saber rattling where China's concerned. And I think he doesn't have, he does not. It's not that he's all wrong, but I don't think it's coming from a principled stance. I think it's like a hodgepodge of different stances based on popularity and based on some thought, but not principled in terms of how you deal with things.
Right. Like he did all the focus group stuff. He got all the Cambridge Analytica information, and then he'll go on stage and they'll ask him, who would you appoint to Fed chair? And he'll go, I don't know, Rand Paul, maybe Ron Paul. I'm like, bro, get out of my head. Get out of my head. Stop it. Stop. Don't pander to me like that, because you just gave it away.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, he's smart. He's a smart guy. I heard him speak after me, and he's brilliant. There's no question about that. I don't believe he's like a World Economic Forum plant. That was just, he sued over that. They put his name up on their website as a young global leader, and he sued them, and they removed it because it wasn't true. I don't think he was a Soros-funded guy, like they say, because he took a scholarship from Soros's brother's foundation to get through law school. That doesn't make him a Soros globalist and so forth. So a lot of the things that are said about him, I think, are nonsense, but I think there are problems, and I wouldn't support him. And even before I became a candidate, I wouldn't support him, but I'm certainly not supporting him now. And I don't think his positions are entirely aligned with, they're not really at all aligned with libertarianism in principle. I mean, he wants to, for example, make the internet, make social media illegal for people under 18. I mean,
I saw that. Right. There comes the Republicanism.
The authoritarian.
Classic.
Yeah, so he wants to replace like the leftist authoritarianism, totalitarianism with a right-wing version of the same thing, which is completely, anathema to what I think and what I think is right.
Yeah, we need, look, to me, I don't know the exact function of a libertarian presidential candidate.
Yeah.
But at the very least, we need somebody out there who is saying all the right things, not just mostly. We need to be as perfectly represented as we possibly can, man.
Yeah.
And I think that you would do a good job. I really do.
Much.
Especially like I said, for the time that we are living in. I think that your credentials are just stellar, man. Here's a big picture question for you. And by the way, if anybody in the comments has any questions for Dr. Rectenwald, please drop them now so we can get them in before we get out of here. I've already kept them 15 minutes longer than I told them I would.
Oh, that's fine. But, I'm having fun.
Oh, thanks, man. That's good to hear. So big picture, the like I said, I watched Loose Change 20 years ago, right after 9/11. That kind of was my first red pilling that, hey, maybe the state isn't always just looking out for your best interest, and it isn't all America gung-ho around the world.
Yeah.
It seems like through all my studies and everything that I can find, and you're talking to an agnostic, pretty much atheist here, but it looks like all roads lead to Nazi occultists. What do you think about that? I saw today that Operation Paperclip was trending. Canada, just the Canadian Parliament had a Canadian Ukrainian who fought against the Russians in World War II come and speak. It's like, yeah, you mean a Nazi? You just had a Nazi.
A Nazi to overwhelming applause and support.
Yeah, I mean, these are interesting times. These demons love their doublespeak.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's amazing that, that Nazism is, well, it's like the most anathema thing to the left, and it should be. It's a terrible thing. But they're unbelievably supporting Nazis with this Ukraine so-called proxy war, which I think is really anything but a proxy war. We're effectively in there. We're lending them, we're giving them arms, we're giving them money, we're giving them, we're giving them military intelligence. We're behind the strategies and everything else. I mean, this is really just the only thing we haven't really done is put people with guns in there ourselves, our own people. We've put other people, we've put mercenaries in there, no doubt. That's
how we do things in America, by proxy.
We do it by proxy. This is statism by proxy. It's war by proxy. It's totalitarian control by proxy. All of these things are done by proxy. This is how they do it. They offload it to these other entities so that they can then claim that no culpability where they're concerned.
I saw Zelensky wants to hire Maria Abramovich. That was the spirit cooking lady that used to work with Hillary Clinton.
There's this Satanist. I don't believe that there's this power that they claim to be supporting, but there's a streak of Satanism going on. It's crazy,
right? Man. Regardless if it's true or not, if Satan exists or not, it feels like these people believe that it does, or at least they're willing to exploit it. But I mean, everything from Bohemian Grove, like that was during Nixon. Just whether it's satanic, or if you want to call it the occult. This isn't really my area of expertise, but it does seem like maybe that's where things end up. Like, I don't know. Okay, well, Klaus Schwab, evil guy, right? It's like, but who's over Tim? Oh, well, BlackRock is over that guy. It's like, okay, well, who's over that? I'm pretty sure it's the devil, man. Like, Nazis,
I see a lot of this, and Naomi Wolf wrote about this. She said, when they kind of got rid of God, this allowed all these lesser gods to come back. Now, however you want to take that, whether that means really, or kind of like symbolically, but nevertheless, these people are occultists, and I think they're evil. Now, whether that is a supernatural basis or not, I won't say in this context, but I think that they are evil. And what I mean by that is they are fully opposed to our best interests. Like, they are inimical to human welfare. Let's put it like that.
Yeah. This is really, when it comes down to it, and when you're talking to normies about, hey, well, why wouldn't the government just spend less money? Or why would they do that? It's because you have to understand, this is not a humanitarian organization. This is a murder. This is a murder cult. So all of the things surround about death. So don't think partisan this or left that, right this. It's like, of course they are going to make the Patriot Act. Doesn't matter that a Republican did that. Of course they're gonna give you the Affordable Care Act, because these are instruments of death, and that's what the regime is.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned that, and this is why I loved your intro to your show, by the way, because it hits a lot of these points. The interesting thing is all of this legislation like the Patriot Act, supposedly against terrorism, has been turned against the people that supported it. It turned against the right, if you will, because now they're domestic terrorists. And isn't that, I mean, it just follows perfectly from the plan to vilify their opposition and to actually turn it against the very people that probably supported it in the first place.
100%. And man, their patience is astounding. Like the powers that be just have, they must not have any kind, like the lowest time preference ever.
That's right.
It's really astonishing. You know, we're always fledgling. Oh my God, how do we, this election cycle? Oh my God. And we're frantic. Like they have 100-year or 500-year plans. It's like, it seems
they're thinking way out ahead. And, you know, it's hard not to be, you know, I got to say, in this culture, in this moment in history, if you're not a conspiracy theorist, you might be brain dead, actually. Because
we've been vindicated.
Yeah. So many times. And they telegraph all this. It's not like this is a secret. They telegraph it. They tell you what they're going to do. Now they're trying to use incrementalism to bring it about. Like, you know, they're not putting you in the on the stove in the water at boiling temperature. They're turning it up a degree at a time.
Yep. That's the way.
And they use predictive programming on television and on Netflix and all those shows they'll float it out there in Black Mirror, see what people think about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just saw Iron Man 2 the other day, where Elon Musk, this is 2010, Elon Musk has a cameo in it. And the whole premise of the Iron Man is, right, like the genius billionaire who has, you know, he goes to battle with the government. They want his military grade shit. He tells them, no, that's mine. He claims that he successfully privatizes world peace with all his wonderful things that he came up with and kind of superseding the nation states of the world. It's just, oh yeah, everybody applauds that.
That's
get your
very
hero.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah.
They really
I mean, look,
the
state is what states do. So, you know, they could outsource a lot of it. They could outsource a lot of it, and people would be like, "What's happening here?" Because it doesn't look like the state. It doesn't taste like the state. It doesn't smell like the state. But it's still the state. And you know, the state can look differently at different times. This is very evident. Look, they did that exact same thing with Starlink over the Crimea. He would not, supposedly he was withholding the use of Starlink, but he did abdicate that position entirely, and he backed off of that altogether. Starlink was used to identify, you know, the exact location of Russian ships, and they apparently were able to to convince him that, you know, he better not withhold that technology because he could be figured as a traitor.
Well, no, I mean, I wonder if they're going to go after Elon hard or not, because he's another one that I'm just not sure of. It seems like
an ambiguous figure. Yeah,
you're saying the right things and you're pushing some correct buttons, but at the end of the day, man, that's a lot. Nobody who are they going to let put Starlink into play? Like, you have to just be
exactly.
His father, I heard, was ahead of he was on the run actually from, I can't remember what country they were originally from. Maybe it was
South
France.
Africa.
South Africa. Well, before they moved there, his father was the head of the technocrat party.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So I don't know. Bill Gates' dad was involved with eugenics and, you know, early abortion stuff. It's like, you know, got to impress your dad, like George W. You know, they're all the same.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. There's a lot to that.
I think so, man. Dr. Rectenwald, can we do this again? You're running for president.
That would be my pleasure. And I really appreciate you having me on. I know we've ranged very widely here, but I think it's fun.
Me too. And like I said, this isn't the show. I know you probably haven't seen the show, but this isn't going to be the show where you come on and I go, okay, sir, day one, you're in the White House. What are you going to do? Right. What are your feelings on the Ukraine war? It's like, guess what, man? I know that you're a solid libertarian, so your position on that's going to be don't. You know what I mean? And I think that this stuff we talked about tonight, selfishly, it's what I'm most interested in. And I think it's really, really important for the time that we live in. So you very well might be the messenger that we need at the moment. So I appreciate you getting into the race. It's brave of you to do that, and I hope that it's fun. And I hope
I'm going to have fun at it. Yeah, absolutely.
Good, man. Yeah, it's like Ron Paul said: if we're going to have a revolution, we're going to need some young people, some music, and we're going to have some fun. If we're going to do it. So
absolutely,
that would be great. Tell everybody where they can go find you and support you and send money and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So, I have two main websites now. One is, of course, for the campaign. It's wrecktheregime.com. That's REC theregime.com. And that'll take you to the campaign and everything associated with it. And then I have my personal website, which I kept separate. It's michaelrectenwald.com. There you can learn all about me. I haven't hid anything. Everything's on there. And you'll see a long track record of fighting the beast.
I do appreciate it. Dan, you got anything?
I think that's a good spot, man. You said not just a few minutes ago, I don't know what to expect from a libertarian candidate, but we need somebody saying all the right things. And I think that's it. Dr. Rectenwald, right in the beginning, you said my job as the candidate is going to be to tell the truth.
Yeah.
That's it, man. Just tell the truth.
That's
hard enough. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm, wherever the chips fall with that, that's just going to be the way it is. I'm not going to dissemble. I'm not going to equivocate, and I'm not going to lie. Not about myself and not about anything else.
Hell yeah, man. That's the way to do it. That's kind of what we try and do around here. Just tell the truth and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Lead with that. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks, Dave and Dan. It's great to be on.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. See you next time. Dan! We did it, bro. 3 weeks in a row. Consistency. 3 presidential candidates. We're really knocking them out of the park, I feel like. So great to see you, man. Missed you.
I missed it too. Yeah. What are we doing next week? We doing this?
Yeah. We'll do it no matter what, because maybe we'll have a chat. Maybe I won't invite anybody unless, hey, if you're out there and you're running for president, get up with me.
Hit Dave up. Yeah.
Hit me up. That's what we're up to these days.
And if you can't find anybody, I'll run.
I'm telling you, everybody's doing it these days, But you better fucking tell the truth and get out there and start some fires. Yo, man, that was a lot of fun. Thanks, dude.
See you next time.
Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, episode 55 in the bank. That was fun. He's a good one. Good dude. And a lot of energy. I don't know what all that bullshit was about. Kept it up, and a lovely singing voice. So, we'll do it again next week. I'll see you guys at 7 on Monday. Peace.